Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is about 9:30 on a Wednesday morning. Pretty rainy, overcasty day. So I hope everyone's doing good. It's a day before tomorrow is Halloween already. It's unbelievable. I'm super excited. It's my favorite holiday of the year. I've always been into the holidays, Halloween, kind of being my favorite. And I've always had a deep love for Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of those things. But Halloween's always great. For me, I don't really have to do well. I don't really do anything different. A lot of people do movie lists around Halloween. A lot of the YouTubers do their top 5 or 10, horror films. But again, I watch movies all year round. The only movies that I watch generally around Halloween that are obviously very uh, Halloween specific, as far as being related to them is obviously Halloween, the original Halloween films. I watch them year round anyway, but I have a tradition of always watching the at least the first John Carpenter slasher classic, Halloween from '78. I always watch that every Halloween. I don't usually watch that. I usually don't watch that movie, during the summer or some other season. It's always geared towards Halloween season. And the other movie I always watch is also Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, which to me is it's such an awesome Halloween movie, and it's got everything you want for this season. It's one of my all time favorite movies. Super low budget, basically TV movie, but it's so creepy and atmospheric. It just reigns the just exemplifies the whole Halloween season. And Dark Knight of the Scarecrow and Halloween are my two favorite Halloween centric films. So, and Halloween has always been my favorite, but Dark Knight has grown. I bought it probably about 3 years ago. I found an amazing copy of it on Blu-ray. Since then, it has climbed to the top of the heap, and it's probably almost tied with Halloween. So tonight, I'm going to be watching Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, and I'm going to probably do another review. I've done shows on that film before because I can't say enough good things about that movie. And then tomorrow, I'm having a little gathering with some friends, and we're going to watch on Halloween. We're going to watch the original Halloween and also the sequel, Halloween 2, both the original films. We're going to get some pizza, drink some beer, and have a good time. So I'm excited about that. It's kind of an impromptu, makeshift little party. So I'm just going to have like a few friends over. So very much looking forward to that. That movie, Halloween, always puts me in a Halloween state of mind, literally. So last night I had a really interesting and kind of a fabulous experience. I got out of work about 5:30. Where I work at the Montessori school in Belfast, and I typically get out of work around 5:30 ish or so. And so I had to go there to Opera House Video in Belfast, which is like 5 minutes away from where I work. So I had to go there to, drop off some movies. And typically when I go there, I usually don't, whether I'm going there to buy movie or to rent movies or if I'm going there to drop movies off, I typically don't just kind of stay there, or I typically just don't run in and just drop off the movies, especially if Dennis Howard, the owner, is there. I typically will, he's a good friend, so what ends up happening is I'll be there for at least 20 minutes to a half hour, if not more, and we'll just shoot the shit, and we'll start talking about movies, different movies that we've seen or that we've heard about, or so that always happens, and it's always great. I always look forward to doing that. So when I went in last night, I got there about 5:30ish or so to drop off some movies, and the same thing happened. We were talking about the movies that I returned, some movies that he saw, sharing our opinions, and it was great, and it was awesome. And I was in there for quite a while, and some customers came in, and somebody who came into the shop had mentioned something about there being like a movie premiere. A movie was showing, this low budget kind of indie horror film was going to be showing in town. And about 2 seconds later, Dennis had mentioned to me, he's like, "Yeah, are you gonna go? Are you gonna go to this?" And I was like, "What? What is that?" He's like, "Yeah, there's a movie that's gonna be playing in town at the Colonial Theater, which is a kind of an institution in Belfast. It was closed for a very long time, and it reopened about, I think, about 2 years ago. And it's an old school movie theater, and it's a really amazing theater. I used to go to it like religiously. I don't go to it as much just because of, I don't know, maybe it's a scheduling thing, or I'm not sure, but they typically have a lot of newer films, and a variety, and like a pretty good assortment of movies. But schedule wise, I kind of got out of the habit. I used to work nights for a couple of years, and when they were still open, which was during the time of, COVID was at its worst, but they were open, and I wasn't able to really go, and things kind of changed with my schedule. So I started going to these other theaters that had offered more movies and more, variety as far as time slots and things like that. So but before that, I used to go, all the time, and I go there occasionally. I went there to see The Godfather. They had a free showing of that, and then so Dennis was telling me that there's this movie playing there called Round of Decay, and it's this brand new, super low budget indie horror film that just premiered, I guess, last week. And he said, yeah, it's going to be at 6:30, and the director who directed the film, and I believe wrote the film or co-wrote the film, was also going to be there to do like a Q&A. And his name is Adam Newman. And again, I did not hear anything about this. I did not. It was basically the first time I had heard about this movie showing. And well, it hasn't happened in a while, but most of the time, Tuesday nights, I usually have band practice here at my house. But it's been in a little bit of a funk lately as far as consistency, and we haven't really practiced in quite a while. So for this past Tuesday, yesterday, I didn't hear anything. Usually we get a message or a call, usually a message in our group chat about, oh, okay, practice. See you guys at 6:30. Is everybody on board, kind of thing. And whenever we do practice, that's usually what happens. But Tuesday during the day and into the late afternoon, there was no message about practice. So I was assuming there was no practice. So when Dennis told me, I'm like, oh wait, I kind of have the night free, because if I wasn't going to have practice, I was gonna just, come home, make some dinner, and get some practicing it on my own, working on some music stuff, because I didn't get to really practice during the day. So I was like, oh fuck, I can do this, I can make it, and looked at the time, and I had about basically like a half hour to kill. So I told Dennis, thanks, this sounds really cool, so why the hell not? So I'm going to go do this. So I went to the store, had to run a couple errands, and then I went to the Colonial. I went in, and it was funny. I walked in, and there was like, I don't know, two or three people kind of in the lobby. Paid for my ticket, and I got some popcorn. I had to get a little bit of food because I hadn't eaten dinner at that point. So got a little snack, and got my ticket. And the movie, which I was really excited for, was playing downstairs. They have this other theater, the downstairs theater that's called Dreamland at the Colonial, which is a really amazing old school theater. It's got a really great sound system. It's a really old theater. It's like an old school kind of vaudeville theater. So this film was playing in that theater. So I was like, oh, even better. Like, this is a bonus. So I went down there, went down, got my ticket, got situated, and I was literally the only person sitting in the theater. It was for about 5 minutes. There was nobody there, and then a guy comes in, two other guys come in, and then a few other people came in, and they sat up in the balcony. And there was a guy sitting behind me who had a like a black kind of winter hat, kind of like what I had on. And I realized and learned about 5 minutes or so before the movie started that that was the director of the film. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they came out. There was a guy who works at the Colonial, Kyle, who is the owner of the Colonial Theater, had set up a sound system, a PA, and a microphone, and had addressed this guy whose name was Andrew, who was sitting, or sorry, Kyle, the owner of the Colonial, was setting up a PA and testing a microphone, and he was addressing who I later had met, who is the director, Adam Newman. He was kind of sitting behind me, and I didn't realize it was him. And Kyle was saying to Adam, we're going to start the movie, and there'll probably be a few more people coming, and indicated that Adam was going to do like a Q&A afterwards. And I'm a sucker for Q&As. I think it's really, really awesome. So, and like 5 or 10 minutes later, the movie started. Round of Decay. And I have to say, this movie was actually really, really good. It was like an old. I didn't know, again, I knew nothing about this movie. And found out at the end of the whole kind of presentation, that the movie was shot for $60,000. I mean, virtually nothing, nothing. Like, especially by today's standards. But this movie was cool. It was like uber low budget. It was kind of in my mealhouse. It's kind of my style. Super low budget, and essentially was a kind of a monster movie. Super schlocky. It was kind of silly. It had some good moments though. It had some good action. It had some surprisingly good kill scenes. There is a scene that takes place in this ice rink where there are a bunch of kills where the monster is kind of fully realized, or where the monster is on the screen. It's it was very interesting, and I had a good time. It was kind of light and fun, and I'm a sucker for a really good monster movie with practical effects and a pretty good storyline with some good atmosphere. And overall, I had a really good time. The movie is a little bit long. It's probably about 2 hours. It's just about the movie clocks in just about 2 hours. I think the one thing I will say about the movie is I thought it might have been a little bit of a stronger experience if it was maybe edited down a little bit. But there was at one point in the movie where I felt it was kind of coming to an end, but then there was still about, I'd say, another additional 20 minutes. But so it got a little bit long. It was a little bit long. It was a little bit of a, I'd say a little bit. There was a little bit of a lull during that time with the film. But overall, I generally thought it was a fun ride, for what it was. And I was pleasantly surprised. It kind of deals with this kind of ancient folklore kind of monster that inhabits this small town, and it's tied to the ancestry of this woman and the town and the culture. and it's essentially more or less a boogeyman kind of tale, and it's really great. And I thought it had a cool story as far as the town and the generations that that are part of this town and how they relate to this creature and what they do to kind of appease this creature. And it has a little bit of that folkloric aesthetic to it. But essentially, I felt like it was kind of a monster movie, and I thought it was, you know, it was pretty solid. I had a good time. It had some, goofy and silly moments in the right places, and I was along for the ride. My only criticism was that it was maybe a little bit long, but I enjoyed it, and overall, and I had a good time. I was really surprised, super surprised by it. The I thought too that the film was. I would have guessed that it required more money than what he than what the director had said, what Adam had said at the end of at the end of the film. There was a Q and A. So I was really surprised that he said it was only for $60,000 because it actually had a pretty good production value behind it. So it did feel like it was a bigger film. But it was great, but my favorite part of it was after the film was done, he did a he Adam did a Q and A, and it was again just a handful of people there. So Adam Newman just basically the people that were there just kind of congregated and sat around, and he basically talked about the film, and everybody kind of talked about had questions for him, and it was great. It was really interesting. We were talking about some of the things we talked about was what it's like now to be a horror filmmaker. Where I raised the question about, even though I'm not a real big fan of these films, I still think it's something to pay attention to, and it is inspiring. But in the age right now, with the height and the success of a film like Terrifier, the Terrifier franchise, where those movies, the last one, the most recent one, has basically has stolen the crown for the box office, and it's actually making more money than any Hollywood movie. And it's a totally independent, film, and it's completely outside of the system. And it's what the success of that film and of those films is kind of unprecedented and unparalleled, and how and I basically asked him like what his thoughts were about that, and the kind of the you know what it's like. Is it because of this success and there's this new world that's kind of opening, is this the best time to be an indie horror film director? And he more or less said that for the work that he's doing, it's hotter than ever as far as this is the right time for these kinds of films, especially really low budget independent films. And the success, saying that there was more opportunity now, and it was really an interesting interview. And then we were also talking about the dilemma, obviously, of streaming, all of the streaming platforms, and also as opposed to going to the theater and buying physical media and all of these things, and kind of the dilemma, the complexities around that. It was great. And I had said to him too, because I've had this experience before where I had talked to a few different directors, and we definitely had a difference of opinion around it. So and I think it's a real, kind of important question, not only from and learning about what their opinions are around this subject, whether they are a filmmaker or they are, especially hearing their perspective, or from my perspective, where I'm not a filmmaker, I'm just a fan, a film fanatic, and you know, it's, and it's a and it affects, that whole subject greatly affects what the content creators, and then the people like me who try to support that and who collect movies and watch movies. So, and I had said my whole big thing, like I had basically said to him, my whole kind of thing is that I'm kind of an odd man out when it comes to streaming. I basically said I don't stream films. I don't use Netflix. I don't use any of those platforms. And I said, well, I collect movies. That's my passion, and I basically that's what I do, and I love to go to the movies. I love to have this experience, and pretty much my favorite experience. And I said, I'm kind of the odd man out because I was saying how friends of mine, people that I know, I'm definitely the odd man out. Most people stream films and have that experience in the privacy of their own home, through streaming and what have you. So, and then I told him my reason, kind of my weird reasoning for that is that I don't really believe in the quality of what we are getting as consumers. I think the quality that we get from streaming is, really it's just not good there because of the aspect ratio of the films, the way the technology that's used to compress these films, where the sound, and especially in from the visual standpoint, when you have dark scenes, they are extra dark. As far as when you watch something streaming, everything is kind of compressed. There's no area for the film to kind of breathe. And I had used the example of that film, Ari Aster's Hereditary, an amazing film. But that was the first time I really noticed it, and where I watched something on DVD or Blu-ray at home, and it was, pretty good quality. And then I also had watched it once at a friend's house on Netflix. I noticed that whenever there were scenes where it was very dark, I could not see what was going on. Everything felt really, really crunched and compressed, especially the music, where the music felt like there was no air for that to breathe. And that was one of my that's and I said basically my grievance with that whole way of experiencing a movie is really purely from a technical standpoint. And I said, I mean, so what are your thoughts of that? Like, is that a crazy argument? Does that make sense? And he totally agreed with me. He's like, yeah, there is that dilemma. You have to. There is a period of adjustment, even when filmmakers are submitting their films through all of these streaming platforms. It's a dilemma because you're getting things become maxed out. So I don't know, but it was a really great interview that he gave, or Q&A, and it was just a handful of people, and he was really cool guy. So I'm thinking about approaching him and trying to get him on the show as a guest. So yeah, but what a great, cool, and wonderful, cool last minute surprise. I definitely recommend this movie. Round. It's called Round the Decay, and it just came out I believe last week, and it was directed by Adam Newman. I definitely recommend it. It's a really fun indie horror film, shot for $60,000. So pretty cool stuff. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.